I was lucky enough to be part of the Street Fighter 6 server beta test this weekend. The game looks great. I had a lot of fun practicing the different characters, but I noticed something in Street Fighter 6 that I thought a game like StormGate could really learn from. Both of these games are extremely difficult. If you've ever played a fighting game, especially sitting next to somebody, it's intense. The combos are very hard to pull off. It's very punishing. You can get hit a couple times and then get comboed out and barely even get to play the game. And the same is also true for RTS. I have sat next to so many friends who have asked me, please teach me StarCraft. And I'll say, okay, sit down. I'll tell you what to do. And even before they engage with the opponent, they're already, some of them literally shaking, sweating, missing workers, forgetting to make pylons, unable to tech further along. A lot of times when you actually have to engage your opponent, it's very stressful.
That's what I expected.
Things can fall apart very quickly is what I'm trying to say. Now, what I noticed when I was playing the Street Fighter 6 beta was that the inputs for the controls were different than what I was used to. It actually felt a lot more like Guilty Gear Strive. Then I realized there were two different controller settings. There is classic play and modern play. Now, with classic play, it's just like all the Street Fighters before it. You've got your light punch, middle punch, heavy punch, or light kick, middle kick, heavy kick. Now, it's only 6 buttons, but the truth is, that's a lot of information for a new player. And frankly, a lot of players, when they start, they maybe just do their heavy kick, or they learn to use, maybe if they're good, a middle punch into like a dragon punch, something like that. But what modern controls have done, and that's what I'm talking about here now, is they've just simplified the inputs so that you're basically doing the main moves you would want to be doing if you were a beginner anyways. And this is allowing players who come into the Street Fighter genre to at least experience the game the way it's supposed to be played without the burden of having to master the inputs in a training mode and then go and meet another player. I'm sure many of you watching this, especially if you're a die-hard fighting game player who grew up playing these games in arcades and competing against your friends, you had to learn how to do the inputs in a training mode. And I get it. That's what I had to do too. But the reality is that most people will try a game like Street Fighter. If it's under classic controls, find it too hard and walk away. If a game's going to grow, you need to try to offer a new player at least the experience of what it would be like to play at a competitive level. Now, when it comes to the highest form of play, I don't think that you should be holding everybody's hand. I think eventually a player should be able to graduate into playing the game the way it's supposed to be played. And I think the Street Fighter modern controls really allow for that in the game. If you were to show somebody who's never played a fighting game before, they would at least get to see what their movement is supposed to look like. So, how does this impact StormGate? Well, I think there are certainly systems you should be able to put in place in an RTS game for a very beginner that would allow them to sort of get in the saddle of a game and start to experience what it's supposed to be like. Maybe you can have, on a beginner setting, automated worker production that you can, toggle on or off throughout the game. Maybe you can have it so that pylons will build automatically. Maybe you can even set the game to have a little build order algorithm it'll follow so players can just get used to controlling units. The goal here is to try to show players what a StarCraft game is like so they can be lured in and later on learn the joys of macro. Because the game is so focused on base building and trying to lay everything out, even though I think the most rewarding part of the game is actually engaging your opponent, fighting them, and crushing them, to put those training wheels on, I think in the long run is going to lure a lot more new players in who can then become hardcore fans. Now, I also think there's some options here involving maybe having graphs or charts that are on screen. Again, only for beginner players, but kind of like when you watch a StarCraft 2 competitive match or a replay, you can see the little tabs at the top and see how far along all the upgrades are, how far along each unit is to coming out, maybe how long it's going to take before your layer finishes. I think offering that in a beginner mode setting is also helpful. Now, here's where I object as far as competitive play. I think all these features should not be available once you really want to start to ladder. including graphs, including numbers. You know what? Even the numbers in that show you how many workers are mining in gas or minerals, I feel like if you're going to be in a competitive environment, even that should be turned off. I'm for anything that helps a beginner player and all the settings they may need to start to experience the game. But once you get to the higher level, I think that's where you get to graduate and then try the game on a much more competitive level. This is the same thing you get with Street Fighter 6 with the modern controls versus the classic. Ultimately, if you're going to play the game at the highest level, you need to have access to all the moves at your fingertips and be able to execute in any situation. And so my hope is that StormGate will offer new players features like this so that we can attract an entire new generation of RTS players and hopefully have a very healthy and successful RTS future. Let me know what you thought about this video. Do you agree with me? Do you think we should have something like modern controls in Street Fighter 6 implemented into StormGate? Or maybe you're hardcore, you think that's a bad idea. Either way, let me know in the comments. Please subscribe to the video. That'll help videos like this get to the general YouTube audience. It'll bless the algorithm. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.